the very highest level, and she continues to shape conversations that truly matter. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce the person who will guide today's discussion. Silvana Aceto is TREP's Director of Communications and a key force behind how we connect and communicate with our members every day. She brings insight, curiosity, and a natural ability to lead meaningful conversations. And I know she will make this discussion both engaging and memorable. It is now my absolute honor to introduce our keynote speaker. Mrs. Obama is more. Oh, I got more to say. I'm going to do it one more time though. Mrs. Obama is more than a former First Lady. She's a global voice for empowerment, resilience, and possibility. She grew up on the south side of Chicago in a home grounded in strong values, family, and hard work. From those beginnings, she built a career rooted in purpose, graduating from Princeton University and Harvard Law School, before stepping into leadership roles that would ultimately take her to one of the coolest pieces of real estate on earth, the White House. As First Lady of the United States, she redefined the role. She used her platform to advocate for education, health, military families, and the next generation, always with a focus on creating meaningful, lasting impact. Her memoir, Becoming, became one of the most successful books of our time, spending more than 130 weeks on the New York Times bestsellers list, and reaching millions of readers around the world. Through her storytelling and her work across media and advocacy, she continues to inspire people to reflect on their own journey and recognize their potential. She reminds us that where you start does not define where you can go, and that each of us has the power to shape our own story. And today, we all have the opportunity and great fortune to hear from her directly. Please join me in giving a warm, enthusiastic, Realtor Quest welcome to today's moderator, Silvana Aceto, and former First Lady of the United States, Mrs. Michelle Obama.
Over the years, you've talked about your childhood, you've talked about growing up in a small apartment on the south side of Chicago, even sharing a room with your brother. How did that experience shape your definition of home?
Oh my goodness, 74th and Euclid. I mean, my home, how my brother and I, how we grew up, meant everything to who I am today. My goodness, we grew up with everything. Is everybody okay? Oh, people are. Just want to make sure. So she had no patience for children. She also taught piano lessons downstairs for all the neighborhood kids, and she and I used to get into it because I was 4 when I decided that I could play the piano. I mean, I really knew then that I could because I had a good ear for music, and I would hear the scale skills and other students playing. So I believed that I could sit down and play, which I could, but Aunt Robbie would have none of that, because she believed that you started at the beginning and there was the process, and we would argue from the time that I was 4 or 5 that she was moving too slow and she thought I was trying to progress too quickly. So we were mortal combatants at the time. And my mother let me fight my battles. I mean, she was like, you have to be respectful, but you know, you have to convince your Aunt Robbie what you want to do and how you want to do it. And I use that example also to tell people that a lot of kids know very young who they are, what they can do, you know, and a lot of times adults don't listen. And I felt that way. I mean, I felt that I understood who I was. I knew I had a lot to learn, but it felt like the adults around me didn't quite get me, you know, and so I try to make sure that young people understand when they have that voice in their head, that little something that they have inside of them that tells them that they know who they are, to listen to that, even if the world around you is trying to beat it out of you, which sometimes happens to kids. And I experienced that too when I left my home, that, you know, not everybody thought that I was as smart as I thought I was. I wouldn't get the benefit of the doubt in the same way that I'd get it in my home. So those were some things that I had to grow and learn and work against.
You moved from Chicago to Washington, D.C., into the White House, a place that's been described both as majestic and at times a gilded cage. What was it like raising your 2 daughters there? I mean, there must have been moments where you thought, this is an unusual place to call home.
I mean, that's an understatement. It is probably the greatest fear that I had when Barack won his election. At a point, I reconciled the risk and the challenges that his decision had on him and on us, just being out there, the threats, the risks, the difficulty of the job. I had already reconciled that, but the deeper concern for me was, how do I make sure my kids get through this hole? They were 7 and 10 when we moved into the White House, and they lived in the White House longer than they've lived anywhere, which is an odd thing to think about, but they were literally raised in the White House. So I really focused my attention on making sure that in all the oddity, that they had a sense of normalcy to their lives. And yeah, it was weird. You know, we lived on the south side of Chicago. We lived in a community full of family, and the kids, you know, I dropped the kids off, my mom would pick them up, they had ballet, they had a really wonderful group of friends. You know, Chicago is a very, you know, it's a very down-to-earth kind of place. You know, we didn't live on the coast where people were wealthy and people were networked. That's the community that we came out of. And then you land at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and it's an address, just so that people understand, you don't get access to the White House until the inauguration. So you are literally moving your family without knowing what the house really looks like. I think we'd been there once before and had a quick tour with Laura Bush and with Jenna and Barbara, and the girls got to attend, but they didn't really know. So it's not until after the inauguration, after the big parade, that we, for the very first time, walk into this home that we've never been in, into rooms we've never seen, with a staff of people we've never been in. I didn't even know where my kids were. They were off because we set up a set of activities for them. So imagine walking into what is a historical museum for the first time after a day of exhaustion, and you have literally an hour to get ready for 13 inaugural balls. Sasha was on a rec league team with Maisie Biden, Joe Biden's granddaughter, and they were on the Vipers. And Barack actually coached them for a season because the two parents that were the parents' coaches didn't know anything about basketball, and it drove Barack crazy. So he couldn't just sit on the bleachers and watch these girls run around without a play. So he slowly started easing down and giving advice to the parent coaches, who eventually just let him coach. Because what are you going to do? The president's whispering in your ear, and you don't know what you're doing. So he became the coach of the Vipers, a 4th grade rec team in Chevy Chase. And the games would be very interesting because on any given weekend, it would be the President of the United States, the Vice President, the First Lady, the Second Lady, all of the children, and all of our security at this one rec gym. And I always felt bad for the other team because it would be crowded, full of agents, and so we try to make it normal, but it's not normal.